Sexton trying to get loose. He'll fire. He knocks it down. Carl slammed it home. Garland upstairs. Oh! Sexton inside. A thunderous dunk. And Allen blocked the shot at the rim.
They said we couldn't podcast after All-Star Weekend, but here we are. Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. Support for this podcast and the following message comes from Zoom. 500,000 businesses connect using Zoom, a single platform for phone, chat, workspaces, events, apps, and video. Zoom enables real-time collaboration for teams around the globe. Zoom, how the world connects. And connecting with me now, live via Zoom, is my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing very, very well. It was a very, very fun weekend in the land. Just activities on activities. We met the GM. We met the coach. We interviewed the president of basketball ops. Sorry, I always forget about that promotion.
Good correction. Good correction.
Thank
Carter.
God, because if you had gotten me on
in person,
well, thank goodness I didn't. We met the president of basketball operations and the coach and interviewed them. We had a little happy hour action with Channing Frye and talked to him for 30 minutes. We met more media folks and friends than you can count. And the 75th anniversary happened, and the boys were all playing well. Oh, it was a great weekend, my friend.
Well, I mean, the Cavs went into the weekend with a 2-game losing streak, and now we have a 3-event winning streak, Carter, for this last quarter of the season. Because every event the Cleveland Cavaliers took part in over the weekend, they won. They won the Rising Stars. They won the skills contest. And Jared Allen locking down Joel Embiid when it really counted to help Team LeBron win on All-Star Sunday night.
MVP who? Blocking him at the rim?
But before we get into all that, I do want to give a massive shout out to the city of Cleveland itself. For those that don't know, part of why I fell in love with the Cleveland Cavaliers is just the connection I felt with the city, just the fans, the mentality of Cleveland sports fits Winnipeg sports just so well. And to be kind of received the way that we were over the weekend, to see Cleveland just, showing the hell out, wrapped up so beautifully. Everyone was friendly.
Logistics. I don't know about you, man. My takeaway was, holy crap, the logistics of making an all-star game happen are ridiculous. There were, no joke, 20 TV trucks parked outside the arena. Every building within, 4 miles was wrapped in all-star, vinyls everywhere. Every hotel had Slam magazines with the beautiful cover shot by your boy Jimmy Longo. And it just felt like the entire city was taken over in a way that I don't know if I all the way expected.
I guess I expected it, but it wasn't something that was on the forefront of my mind because there were so many other things that were racing through my head as the week approached. First and foremost, of course, was that Wednesday night event where we had the good fortune of being able to interview both Kobe Altman and JB Bickerstaff. That did not make it onto the podcast feed, but our listeners can go check that out on the Cavs YouTube channel. Audio wasn't quite at
It was
the
a
level
live
I
event,
would want.
It was a live event. It would have been a little difficult on the pod feed, so we had to put it on just the YouTube. But, buddy, it was so
a nice
fun.
little YouTube exclusive because I've turned into a bit of an audio snob over the years, Carter. I can't really apologize for it because I that's just who I am now, and I've accepted that. But major shout out to the Cleveland Cavaliers for helping make this possible, to continue to believe in us and enable us to do what we've been doing. We broke a little bit of news over the weekend as well that we have signed an extension and are staying partners with the Cleveland Cavaliers for a little while longer, so that's very, very exciting. I could not.
They don't let the legends hit free agency. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, I guess that's one way you could spin it. But another shout out needs to go to all of the listeners of the podcast, all the fans that took the time to approach us when we were walking through the streets, to hang out with us at Flannery's and hang with us as we got a shot from Dennis Rodman, which was a very surreal experience. And just the love and support that we got from everybody in Cleveland, whether they were fans of the podcast or not, it just helped make that week so much special, so much more special than I even could have imagined in my wildest hopes and dreams. And you can tell my voice hasn't fully recovered from it yet. I was just so excited to get to hug it out with everybody and just really soak in the weekend. So from the bottom of my heart, massive thank you to all of our fans and supporters.
Yeah, I mean, it remains so cool. I know this is a little self-indulgent, so guys, you're just going to have to deal with it. Sorry. But we know we have,
which is totally foreign on this podcast, right?
I know.
We never get self-indulgent.
we know that we have our core group of listeners, our Discord boys and girls that are, that are down with the cause, and sometimes really not even that down with the cause. They just like to hang out in the Discord. But, you kind of in your brain, you kind of go, well, if you're an online kind of person who's tweeting 500 times a day, you listen to this thing and maybe you could have found it. But if not, you don't really know what it is. But so many people are just like, oh, yeah, I've been, I don't tweet. I'm not on Discord, but I love the pod and I've been listening for years. And it's like, holy crap. Just an honor. It's so fun that, we've built this little community of Cavs diehards, man. It was a really, really cool weekend.
Super cool. And we kept hearing from the people that we're meeting for the first time, but maybe have podcasted with or interacted with on Twitter, that were coming in from out of town. Like, everybody had a lot of fun. They really loved spending time in the city, and they learned what we've been saying for a while now, which is what makes Cleveland so great is the people that are in it. And when you have a place that has cool places to hang out, to go drink, amazing food, I ate incredibly well once again. What more could you possibly want than those three things? And I'm sure some people complain about the weather. Trust me, even as someone coming from the Arctic cold, that wind, it can.
It was
touch
no
you.
joke, my friend.
But the rest of the reception just made it feel so warm the entire time. So from the bottom of my heart, again, thank you so much to all the fans and supporters, because really made the weekend extra special. But the Fever Dream season continued over All-Star Weekend with basically everything just going script perfect. You look at the Cavs doing so well in the Rising Stars competition. Evan Mobley sealing it with a half-court shot. Could not have been more exciting. His run.
I'll tell you what, you will never, ever get skills competition in Rising Stars straight.
Did I?
You will never do it. You will never do it. No, you said Rising Stars while talking about the skills again. Yeah. All weekend, guys. You know what? All weekend, he got this wrong.
I'm nothing if I'm not consistent.
You have a true mental block on this one.
I don't know what it is. I think it's because there was so much carryover participation. You get the rookies in both of those games. Sure. That's my story, and I am going to stick to it. But yes, Rising Stars. Evan Mobley was fantastic. Cade Cunningham got MVP because he was throwing lobs to Mobley and got credit for all those assists.
Bone to pick with friend of the pod, Chris Fedor. It's an all-star event, Fedor. Vote local. Throw your integrity out the window. Vote local.
Hey, man. Especially, during these hard times, you got to support local businesses.
Absolutely.
And that's what the Cleveland Cavaliers are, But yeah,
journalism be
it was
damned.
Really funny. That first game was really fun and intense, and then when the Cavs played their game, it was very clear that was going to be for basically the championship, the win in the Rising Stars event, because they were playing such hard defense already, relatively speaking, I should say, because they were probably still at about 80% effort, but that's more than the 50 that they usually get. But I love that format. I thought it was so much fun. I think the mini games helped keep me engaged, and it really made for a fun Friday night.
Yeah, I didn't know if I'd like the little mini tournament. I thought it was just the right amount of basketball. The Elam ending. Oh, actually, that wasn't even Elam ending. It was just play to a bucket.
Target score.
Play to a number. But, it was super competitive. It was funny because that first game was more all-star gamey and intensity, and then all of a sudden you get these tryhards like Jayshawn Tate and Isaac Okoro out there, and guys can't help but start scrapping. It was so fun to see. Mobley really, separated himself even in that game. Dear friend of the pod, all-star LaMelo Ball was the fourth best guy in the court.
Tough scene. Tough scene there, Carter.
But yeah, no, Mobley was awesome. It I don't know about you, but it felt a little weird not having him in the All-Star game. Like having him not be a part of All-Star Sunday because, he's such an important part of our experience right now.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think it obviously was fitting for him to be there for All-Star Weekend. And if I had to guess, he's going to be a fixture at All-Star Weekend moving forward for the rest of his career.
Is he an All-Star next year, Justin?
I think it's very possible. You know what?
I say
we're
yes.
We're riding off the high of this weekend. I'm going to say yes, because I do think the Cavs are going to continue building off that success. And as we transition to talking about the skills contest, got it right that time, Carter.
I'm really proud of you.
I think you even got kind of just that little glimpse once again of, oh my goodness, there's another tier for Mobley. When he was going through the shooting contest and hit the first 5 shots, including the 5-point shot, bouncing back and forth, hitting those consecutive threes. That's once again one of those little glimpses that reminds you that there's still so much internal improvement that's going to be coming from Evan Mobley, and the touch is still there. It's about getting it up to a position where he can do that consistently in games and impact beyond what he already is doing. Yeah,
I mean, the reality is Mobley's 3-point percentage, if there's been a thing that has dropped off over the course of the year, his 3 has cratered. You know what percentage from 3 he shot in February?
Oh, I guess 14%, something really low.
18.8. Guess what he shot? Guess what he shot in? In March, and that was in January. What do you think he shot in February?
I'll run it back.
0.
14.
He has not made a 3 in his 9 games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games in February. So the jumper has really not been there for him, and while that's been a little disappointing, practically, to me, it's always I just keep thinking, man, his floor is this, and he can't hit the broadside of a barn right now. So as that jumper develops and he shows off that touch that he showed off in the skills competition, it's just oh yeah, sky's the limit for him, man.
Yeah, not to disagree with new friend of the podcast, JB Bickerstaff, but when he was saying that he didn't really feel like the team hit a wall prior to the All-Star break, I think fatigue was definitely kicking in. To me, it's apparent. I think these 9 days off are going to do the guys a lot of good. I know some of them were taking part in All-Star Weekend, but that is still a lot easier on the body than going out there and playing 3 games in 4 nights, and some of the travel that they've had to deal with over the season. So I think this is going to do them a lot of good. We are approaching the 4th quarter of the NBA season. I believe only 24 games left. They're going to really be tested down the stretch here, where teams are going to be playing harder than they have all season, because these games are really going to start to matter from a seeding standpoint, and they're going to have to be on their best. They can't afford to have off nights, because even though the schedule, relatively speaking, is easier, there's not a lot of bad teams in the NBA, and there's not a lot of easy matchups. Even the bad teams have at least one player that can go off and kill you, as Cade Cunningham did the last time the Cavs played Detroit.
Yeah, it's going to be a really, really exciting. But before we jump to the 4th quarter of the season, let's keep running through All-Star. Justin, we did get to witness history, and that was really cool. In NBA's 75th anniversary, and we got to see an All-Star event that featured the worst dunk contest of all time.
I was pretty sure that was where you were going. I was pretty damn sure that's where it was going. I mean, look, if you're going to have a memorable night, sometimes your memorable nights and your great stories aren't always the best ones. And
it wasn't great, but I'll tell you what, the other events kept the night from being a total bummer, because I thought the shooting competition was pretty cool. Though yep. I'll die on the hill. No all money ball rack. I don't like it. It's too much variance.
I'm so indifferent about that, but whatever. I'm fine with it.
But I thought skills competition was pretty fun. Like, it was a little convoluted. It was a new format. The passing competition was literally unwatchable in the most legitimate sense of you couldn't tell what was going on.
Okay, that's fair, because it was funny as hell because of all the chaos that was out there. I thought skills was a lot of fun. I think it's getting very close to a perfect format. I agree, the passing was a little weird. I don't know why the 4-point hoop was big or smaller than the 6-point hoop. There were a few questions that I had about that. But yeah, skills was great. 3-point contest is consistently fun to watch. And then the dunk contest just happened to be a bit of a rough year. And we've had a lot of those, right? Where it's just kind of hit or miss. It's one of those events that can go either way. And
I wish we could just accept that.
In a memorable way.
I will say this. I wish we could just accept that. Like, it's going to be an event that has a 10% hit rate. But the hit rate is the 10% is so good that it's worth the other 90. Because the reality is, like, it's not like in the 90s where, like where Dominique could just do like, a windmill and get a perfect 10. These dudes have to do like a quadruple backflip into a cartwheel, into a through the legs, off the backboard dunk. And it's like, yeah, well, the degree of difficulty is so high, they're going to miss all the time. And like, I just think it's really, really hard to judge it, where it's like, I just think we just got to be okay with it sucking sometimes. Sometimes it's going to suck, but then sometimes you're going to get the Levine Gordon thing that's going to just change your life.
But what if instead we can share some half-baked takes? Because I've got a potential fix for the dunk contest, Carter.
I hate it already.
I'm
go
wondering
ahead.
If you're interested to hear.
I hate it already, but go ahead.
So you got 4 contestants. You break them into head-to-head matchups.
Nope.
And you do horse.
No,
where
I don't like it.
First guy does a dunk. The second guy tries to imitate it. Then the second guy gets to dunk first, and the first guy gets to imitate it. And whoever has the best combined score gets to set the tone for the next matchup, like for the third one, the rubber match, the tiebreaker, so to speak.
I don't think that solves the problem.
I think it'd be fun.
Because the problem is that the guys miss too many dunks.
Well, that's the thing, because if you only get the one attempt, and that's
then they'll have boring dunks.
No, you're going to get a good dunk executed well.
No, I think, Jalen Green did did a through the legs 360, and people are like, eh.
I think competition makes it a little fun. I think
there is a competition already. They're competing for the best score. You're wrong. You're wrong, buddy. We just don't stop trying to fix it. Just enjoy it when it's fun and get some joy. And I think it was maybe a snotty dripping. Someone on Twitter was like, "We are underrating one of the most fun parts of a bad dunk contest, which is roasting it on Twitter."
It's true.
So it's
good content.
I don't think you can fix it.
It's just a little tough when you get to the point where the field goal percentage in the dunk contest is lower than the 3-point contest. You have a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, and unless they make them all, then it's the coolest thing in the world.
It's true. It's true. Like, for the most part, I'm with you. I'm here for the jokes and whatnot. I think the skills contest, if I could make one tweak, I would love to do the relay with like a minute and a half on the clock, and you end with the shooting contest with those kind of point values on the floor.
With whatever's left.
Whatever time is left, get as much score as you can, have some guys rebounding. Obviously, in that case, it would become an individual event again instead of teams, unless you're doing like
you could do a relay
score thing.
Combined score or something like that.
Yeah, you could do combined score if you wanted to do like duos or something like that. But I do think that would be a fun tweak to it. But I think they're getting really close to a great format, because that's kind of the tricky thing on Saturday night, which is usually I would say my favorite night of the weekend. The kind of search for a third event has always been there, and they've
You know
always
what's
been
funny
tweaking
though
that
is
skills
like
contest.
I don't know if I care if it's a good competition or not. Like from a scoring, like from a competitive integrity thing. Like I had a fun time watching it. So like in that sense, it's probably pretty
I had
fun.
a great time. I had a great time on Saturday. Like it doesn't need to be a great dunk contest for me to have a great time. And like you've said, I think the community aspect of it is a big thing where even if one of the events doesn't go over well, that's fun to talk about, right? And everyone's watching the same thing. So very minor notes on that. And then the All-Star game itself, man. We got to witness one of the better All-Star games, in my opinion. And that's not just because I'm there. That was absolutely fantastic. It's been said once before. It's been said a million times before. The Elam ending has saved the All-Star game. And wow, did we ever get treated to a great one.
Do you think that they pay attention to try to keep the score close through 3 quarters now? Like put on your conspiracy hat. Because we've had a few close ones in a row. I wonder if they're just the game starts in the 4th quarter and like we'll kind of just like we'll take some more, like if we're up 8, we'll just take a way more audacious shot other than we would otherwise.
I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think it's just the natural competition of each quarter meaning something, like the fact that it is for charity.
But they're not competing that hard, bro. They're not.
They compete hard in the last minute or two of each quarter, and we saw that gap get narrowed multiple times over the night, where the last 2 minutes basically, like Giannis would all of a sudden turn it on and like really try to go out there and win that individual quarter. I think it's just kind of inevitable that the competitive juices start getting going in those last minutes, because that's kind of like a final score. So I think that has more to do with it than like some conscious effort to keep it tight until the 4th quarter, because let's be honest, like some of it was just ridiculous shot making to even keep it close. And chief culprit on that list was Steph Curry, who was just absolutely going nuts on Sunday night.
This podcast is well established in their hateration of Steph Curry. That man is a sight to behold when you are in the same building. There is something really, really special about like seeing how he moves, how he gets those shots off, the confidence that it's going in the room. And I tweeted this after the game. Like this was Rocky in Russia in Rocky 4. Steph flipped the crowd. The man got booed to high hell on during his intro, rightfully so. He kind of enjoyed it. You could tell. I think both he and Draymond enjoyed their boos. But like we were cheering,
which is a sign of a real sports crowd, right?
Oh
yeah. And I think that was actually kind of a very unique thing, where you had a crowd that knew the history of basketball. It knew the history of the NBA, right? It wasn't just people from out of town with a bunch of money in there. You had real fans in attendance that were willing to boo Paul Pierce. They were willing to boo James Harden, who the Cavs have no real history with, but we know what's coming. We know how annoying that's going to get.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic. It's sports hate, right? Like I think as long as sports hate is like kept in the right lens,
and it got flipped. You know, like by the end, like we were cheering from the press box. I mean, to in the most literal sense, because it was just such a show. The man hit 16 threes in a game. I don't care what game it is. And like, how much better did that feel than when AD got 52 on putbacks and offensive boards? You know, offensive boards, little duck-ins, just like little dunks. Like that felt like cataclysmic. Like it was just so freaking fun, man. And like,
well, the thing about sports hate too, though, is it's earned, right? Like you don't just give out sports hate to give out sports hate. It's why I'm not making jokes about Jalen Green or Scotty Barnes. Like they are not threats to the legacy of Evan Mobley, right? And Steph Curry and Draymond, both of those guys, they wear it with pride. I hate playing against them, but you know, you respect the game, right? Like, and there's no denying that they are two of the greatest players of this generation. Draymond's probably the best defensive player of this generation. Steph's the best shooter of this generation. And I've said it on the podcast a million times. Like, if I'm building an all-time team, I think Steph is the perfect fit, because he just fits with anybody. And to me, that's part of why I love Garland's game so much, is because I see so much of that, where you can fit him into any individual lineup, and just the ability to pass, to shoot, to play off ball, the understanding of the flow of the game, the way that teammates connect with him. There's a lot of parallels there. So to me, it was a lot of fun to witness. I don't know how Durant managed to put together the team that LeBron had with his decisions. Like the fact that Durant passed on all those guys and allowed for Steph, Giannis, Jokic, LeBron, all these guys to end up on one team.
We make fun. Listen, we make fun of GM LeBron all the time in the real league, buddy. Like, Durant, please stay out of front offices. Please stay out of front offices based on the teams you're putting together. My friend,
Carter,
that was a travesty.
I disagree. We have to play those teams now. The Cavs are up there in the standings. We want Kevin Durant to be making roster decisions left, right, and center.
Yeah, that man does not have it. I'll tell you what. 0-3, 0-4 as the captain. My God. It didn't feel like a fair fight, but it was so exciting to see Allen close, and man, Darius was just a couple centimeters off on a few of those threes. And I think there's a world in which they would have closed with him too, if not for it just wasn't his night in terms of hitting the crazy deep ones.
Yeah, those two fourth quarter threes just rimmed out, and I think the fun part to me was it looked like he belonged out there. He was very, very at home. He made some great highlight plays. The deep three was a lot of fun. I'm not going to go full lunatic and track the number of potential assists, but there was quite a few. Looking at you, Fred VanVleet bricking everything. But it was fun to see Garland out there. He definitely looked like he belonged. And for Jared Allen, there were stretches there where Embiid was giving him the business, especially in that fourth quarter. And Allen just kept making him work for it. And you could tell that Embiid was getting just a little bit tired. And we saw that in the first game against Philadelphia, where Embiid started off really strong. And as the game progressed, you could tell he got a little bit fatigued. And as we have 3 more matchups against the Sixers this season, that's going to need to be the formula. Like, they
better figure out something, because that dude is amazing.
There's going to be nights where Embiid is hitting the step back threes and he's hitting tough shots over Allen, and you're just going to have to live with it. But if he can continue to make him work for that, that's where you get a little bit of hope, because there's not a lot of guys that can even hang around with Embiid. And I think it's actually a sign of respect that Embiid goes as hard at Jarrett as he does. Like, you looked at some of the other matchups where he just doesn't necessarily, like, he's always putting up big stats, but you can tell he's not trying to really go at a guy. And for Jared Allen to be one of those players that he respects and really pushes to make a statement against him, I think is a feather in his cap.
Yeah, it was just super fun, man. Like, he really did help close the game down. Got that huge block at the rim. And finished well, smiled the whole way. It was just a really nice weekend for the Cavs young core. And I do think we must talk about ye old elephant in the room, which is one LeBron James,
the game winner.
One LeBron James setting the media world on fire by throwing some, I wouldn't even call it passive aggressive shade at the Lakers. No. I would call it aggressive. It was
very clear.
Didn't rule out a return to Cleveland. Talked about playing with his kid. What did you kind of take away from that kind of, the whole thing? Because, buddy, it was it felt like as always, he always knew exactly what he was doing as he tossed that lit match into a canister of gasoline.
My takeaway of the whole thing is I think the Cavs are a very convenient boogeyman. I don't think that he was completely I think there's probably some part of LeBron that means it. I mean, there's a connection with the fan base and whatnot, but with the Cavs being as good as they are, for the master of the leverage play, they are a perfect team to throw out there for putting pressure on the Lakers to get them to be active this offseason, to make some moves. I think it was also just a smart play because it probably warmed up the reception. Like I think he would have got a warm reception either way, but tossing those breadcrumbs out there made the cheers just a little bit louder on Sunday night, and I'm sure that was part of the calculus as well. I don't see it happening. I don't think he's going to force a trade to the Cavs or anything like that. And I don't think that he's made it clear that he's not going to play on a minimum contract really, but before that Bronny year. So I just can't see a scenario where it happens in the next 2-3 years. But who knows? Like, I think he was genuine when he was saying he'd keep the door open. And if down the road,
I always thought the door was open.
Yeah, down the road, like if there's an opportunity to sign him for like the mid-level exception or something like that, like obviously I would be into it. It's LeBron, but I just don't think that it's worthwhile to fixate on, because I do think that the primary reason and motivation behind it was a leverage play against the Lakers, which by all accounts, as upset as he is with how this season has gone, it does seem like he wants to stay in LA at least for a couple more years.
Well, yeah, I mean, through this year and next year, when his contract's up, I mean, there's not really much else he can.
There's that weird purgatory year after that year, and when Bronny would be eligible to be drafted.
So, like, I think, like, the question is obvious, and Talking and Grubbin Media in the chat asked it, would you welcome him back? And I think I would. I think that I've spent a lot of time rooting for the guy. I love watching him play basketball. I know there's a lot of drama and attention that comes with LeBron. Some of it self-inflicted. That is like a little tiring, and we've litigated it 100 times. But like ultimately, there's some fun that comes with the idea of, like, especially if the Cavs continue to trend the way they are, of being a team that can accommodate LeBron, not a team that I don't know. There's something like maybe it's just like misplaced like fan insecurity, but like I love the idea kind of romantically of being the place that comes and saves LeBron from basketball purgatory, as opposed to the team that, even when he came the second time, yes, Kyrie was there, yes, he knew that Love was a very, very, very good possibility. And yeah, the talent level was there, but there were no results at all yet. The team stunk. And let's call it what it is. He had to make they had to make some midseason trades even that year to go from being a pretty mediocre team to a good one. So like the idea of just like, and talk about what a perfect fit. How often have I said a big playmaking wing is all they need? How about the best one ever, Justin? I've always been pretty obsessed with how LeBron's going to age, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and figuring out kind of what the way he'd play on a team like this would be really, really fun. The scoring burden wouldn't be there like it is for him in LA right now. The defensive burden certainly wouldn't be where it is. So like it's very intellectually fun to think about for me. But like to your point, like the roads to making it happen are actually pretty limited. Unless you wanted to take a pay cut to come. Now you can cobble together salary, don't you worry. But like I don't find that likely.
You can't do it without leveraging a bunch of the future, and I'm sure there would be.
Well, you could
if the Lakers decided to move him.
You could.
If the Lakers decided to move him, there would be a lot of teams making offers. I just wouldn't be comfortable with it. Like to me, the thing is, I feel like I got closure the last time he came back.
Sure, this would just be for fun. Like that's
we got.
There's no demons being exercised here. This is just fun times now.
Yeah, like we got 4 years, 4 finals appearances, and the Cavs are building something that seems very sustainable, that can have a very long run. They have a great position to be in right now, where they have a lot of assets outside of their core that could be interesting. And I just wouldn't be interested in giving up that sort of kind of massive package to bring in someone like LeBron. Like I think because they've built something that's so special and something that looks like it could be the foundation of a long run, I don't want to go all in on a player this close to the end of his career.
Yeah, I mean, the
And
only difference is your definition of all in is way lower than mine. Your definition is any of the young guys at all.
Well, and also first round picks, like if it's impacting your ability to make moves down the road, right? Like,
yeah,
I think for me,
hold on real quick. I must roast you. I must. We can leverage the future because we have too many young guys for Karis LeVert. But not too many young guys for LeBron James.
Well, I don't think we leveraged the future for LeVert. We didn't give up any picks beyond this year.
You said we don't need to worry about developing young guys right now. We have enough.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I get that, but I'm talking about like giving up multiple picks down the road that impacts your ability to do trade picks and that sort of thing. Like if you were to come back, I would want it to be kind of on the Cavs terms where it's okay, you're coming to be a part of this. You were not looking for a savior.
Yeah, but I think that's the fun part. That's kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah, but my thing is, it's similar to at the start of the year with Ben Simmons talks, where I understood why. Hey, because we're looking for some sort of foundational piece, we're looking to maybe take a swing. I had some interest in that. I'm no longer at that point because I think those pieces are in place now. So if it was on the Cavs terms, I would have some interest. But for me, I'm just so focused on what they currently have in front of us, right? Like,
yeah, I'm not spending much time pining. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, it's after this weekend, it is out of my brain because I don't think that it's a realistic possibility over this year and next year. I can't see it happening, and there's so many interesting storylines. There's so many angles for the Cavs to continue to supplement the core that they have and to make a run. That to me, this is what you think about when you're kind of in the wilderness, and I think the Cavs are out of the wilderness, and we're in a much more interesting place now.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know about more interesting. They would be fun and interesting, and if he came, I would be super excited to see how it worked, seeing how it's the fun basketball experiment. But again, I don't think it's worth fixating on, just because the practical is right in front of our face, and the practical is pretty fun right now. So is it a fun idea? Does the romantic in me kind of like the idea of him ending his career in Cleveland? Of course. Sure. And in my opinion, there is a certain joy in that the team is good right now. You're not coming hat in hand saying, please help us with anyone you're trading for at this point.
Yeah.
And that's really, really fun to me. But we should pivot back to these Cavs and talk about the last quarter of the season because, buddy, now that the deadline is after All-Star break is after the deadline, and that deadline is kind of where it is, it feels like we have the back half of the season. We got 20 games.
Yeah. No, it is, and not only that,
we are less than a month and a half out from the playoffs.
It was actually something I was hoping to ask JB Bickerstaff about, but I have to imagine they are happy that the trade deadline is now before All-Star break because now there's these 9 days off where you can actually go out and kind of have a practice, like get guys comfortable, get Karis LeVert into the rhythm of things. Lauri Markkanen, we would hope would be back, maybe even this week on Thursday for the game against Detroit. Because he was getting pretty close to coming back. I'm sure they will be cautious with that. Cavs have one of the better medical staffs in the league, but now it's a reset. You're no longer feeling that collective fatigue from playing 60 games over the course of a couple months, and each one of these games is really going to matter. I think the Cavs won some games earlier in the season because they were trying harder and they were executing better than other teams, and I think a lot of those teams are now going to be in that same mindset. I think Philadelphia is going to be fighting for every single game. Milwaukee's going to be fighting. Brooklyn, Chicago, like all Miami, all these teams are going to be playing really, really hard because the marathon is starting to pick up speed and it's looking more and more like a sprint. So I think this is going to be a really, really significant test for the Cavs. I think pass or fail, there are going to be a lot of learning experiences over the next couple weeks, and I'm really interested to see how they approach this.
Yeah, it's wild to me that the Cavs per Tankathon, I think they either have the 22nd or 24th hardest schedule remaining. Because you look at this, if you're watching on YouTube, you start out easy with at Detroit versus Washington versus Minnesota versus Charlotte, but then it's quite the gauntlet. At Philly versus Toronto, at Indiana.
I appreciate the slight Charlotte slander there.
Yeah, I think if compared to the other games, it's an easy one. But at Miami, at Chicago versus Clippers, who are feisty, by the way, versus Philly, Denver, Lakers, Toronto, Chicago. These are a lot of tough games here. They have some winnable ones kind of slotted in there, but those are the kind of games they got to win. They have to win against the Charlottes of the world. They have to win against the Orlandos and the Atlantas and the New Yorks. And those are teams that can beat you on a given night. I mean, they just took an L to Atlanta. Because the reality is that I feel like that stretch, that March 4th at Philly all the way through March 26th for Chicago, with only, about 8-9 games left after that, that is going to define whether this team is hosting a home court playoff series in the first game of the playoffs, or they are going to be kind of fighting for their lives as a lower seed and potentially even a play-in team. I mean, they're only a couple games up on the 7th seed.
Yeah, I think from a strength of schedule standpoint, like I think you're right to point out that there's a lot of difficult games and there's that tough stretch in the middle of March. If anyone's wondering how that's easier and how other teams are listed as harder, go check out the schedule for Philadelphia. Go check out the schedule for some of these other teams, because it is really difficult. And that's kind of to my point earlier about there being no real easy games left. Like, every one of these is going to be a game where the Cavs are going to have to come out and earn it. And I think that that's a really exciting place to be. I do think the funny thing about strength of schedule is you can have all the formulas you want, but the reality is who you're playing isn't necessarily a reflection of what the record was up to that point, right? Like, Phoenix is probably listed in strength of schedule calculations as a very tough team, but now they're missing Chris Paul. Boston isn't listed as a tough team, and they are peaking and scary as hell right now. Like, they are playing some of the best defense in the NBA. Dallas at one point wasn't doing very well, and then they peak at different times. So I think you can kind of throw some of those projections out the window and just say, we need to be our best. We need to compete against ourselves, because reality is, like, those 3 games we saw from Darius Garland prior to the All-Star break, maybe that was the result of him finally getting some rest, right, with that back, and he certainly looked good physically over the weekend. But you have to hope that that's going to be the case for Evan Mobley, where he's going to be rejuvenated, that Jared Allen is going to be able to play with the intensity that he had earlier in this season. Like, I do think that this time off is going to benefit them, but they need to have that mentality where every single game really matters.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, they need things to start breaking their way in a very serious way. I feel like the last month has been a bit of a normalization, from the upswing. And the Rubio thing, I think, really messed up their mojo a little bit. I think LeVert needs to come out and be a legit volume scorer at decent efficiency. Don't think he has to be anything he hasn't been before, but he at least has to be, among the best, close to the best version of himself. The Cavs are going to have to figure out how to play with a guy like that, because they haven't had to all year.
Yeah.
I think Darius has to stay healthy. I think Jarrett and Evan need to go back to being uber dominant every second they're on the floor together. The Isaac 3 has, things have to trend up pretty universally, I think, because the rest of the East is just so competitive that it's going to be hard for them to take a big lump. If Darius misses 8 games with a tweaked ankle, we could really be seeing something very, very different. I don't know. I'm feeling a little stressed. You're a little more confident they can dodge the play-in than I am.
Oh, yeah. I'm feeling pretty good about this, looking at the other team's schedules.
One nice thing about this, by the way, is if they do, for whatever reason, drop into the play-in and, tragedy strikes, because, again, you can lose one game and be out, depending on where you are. Thank God they've lottery protected that pick. So, the downside isn't that low.
That is so low on my mind that is possibly even lower than a LeBron return, and that's pretty damn
what
low
percent
itself.
chance do you think that they fall 7 or lower in your mind?
7 or lower?
So that's into the play-in race.
7%.
They're only 2.5 games up, buddy.
I don't care, man. I don't care. I feel good about this. I feel good about this closing stretch to the season. I'm going to call my shot here. I think that they are going to take off in a very interesting way, assuming that they stay
healthy.
If
they take off,
if
then...
if an injury happens and
that
that's
doesn't
the reason
count.
they fall,
that never counts.
That sucks, but that's not something that we really need to discuss in great detail, because it's kind of out of our control, right? It's random. I think Lowry coming back is going to make a huge difference. I think LeVert getting acclimated is going to be a difference maker for them as well. We do need to talk about one thing, though, Carter, which is, even though this Canadian got extended by the Cavs, the other, Kevin Pangos, got waived. He is off to Russia. This opens up the possibility of the Cavs being someone or a team competing in the buyout market. We don't know if
is the Pangos thing official yet, or are we still waiting on that to officially happen?
I saw Keith Smith tweet that he has cleared waivers.
Okay.
I think that is official. But they're going to at least be able to make a pitch in the buyout market, and the buyout market isn't necessarily the most fair system.
Yeah. Well, one thing that's nice is they have the disabled player exception for Colin, so they can throw a little extra money at a player.
Absolutely. So they have that. They have probably the promise of playing time. There are still kind of holes that can be filled within this roster. So at least they have that to their advantage. And if no one becomes available, you can always give that final roster spot to Brandon Goodwin, right? Who is on a 2-way contract. So I think it's an understandable move. Unfortunately, Kevin Pangos, the game just didn't seem to translate to the speed and size of the NBA. But that's why you have partially guaranteed contracts, and I do think that it's an interesting thing to keep an eye on, at least as we see players like DJ Augustine available on the trade market. That would be interesting, or the buyout market.
Yeah.
But I do think
if you were to add
from the guys that are already here.
Yeah, I know a few of us were making eyes at Tristan Thompson for a time. Obviously, he's going to Chicago. If you were to add a third point guard, an extra wing, or a backup 5, where do you go with your
point guard?
See,
point guard.
I feel like I'm kind of flipping over to 5. I want 5 extra legit fouls to use on Embiid.
I just don't think there's going to be a buyout.
There might not be someone better than Ed, though. That's the thing. If there's no one better than Ed, then you just got to kind of roll with it.
I haven't seen a name better than Ed, so that's why I continue going with Ed. Is Cody Zeller a free agent right now? Maybe you would look at someone like that, but to me,
has he been bought out?
A point guard. I think he got cut.
Really?
I could be mistaken. Yeah, that would be one name that would interest me. You fact check me, but my point was going to be,
I don't see anything about this. Did you just make this up?
I might have. It was a long weekend, Carter. Not a lot of sleep yesterday, so it's possible that I was wrong. I thought Portland.
Oh no, you're right. You're right. They waived him to make to free up roster space for the CJ McCollum trade. So guys who were waived on the 11th, per David Smith, DJ Augustine, DeAndre Bembry, Moses Brown. Another, that's more of a project.
Yeah, Ben Brees with the Bucks now.
Yeah, MCW. Looking at other names, each one more.
See, to me, I'd rather get a point guard. One, in case there's an injury, like let's say even Rondo needs to miss some time, or you need to give Rondo a rest. Like I think bringing in a point guard or someone that could at least initiate the offense, to me,
I mean, Augustine, I think is probably the best one on the of the group. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
like. I would probably take him.
He's not disruptive, right? Like he's someone that is going to go out there and knows how to run a team. He's not going to try to do anything he can't do. And to me, that's probably what you want with a third string player.
Yeah. And what's nice about a guy of Augustine's kind of pedigree is like he's not so good that you're like, well, do we have to give him minutes over Rondo? You can just kind of play the matchups and say, hey, Rondo, you're in tonight. And it's fine.
How are you guys feeling physically? Like, you know, we if you're feeling good, we'll play you. If you're not, we have the option to give you a night off. So I think that's a good position to be in. And
would you rather them fill that with a vet, though, than just than converting Goodwin?
I think at this point, I'd rather
I want
with a vet.
I want a vet that I can trust to steady the waters a little bit in the postseason.
Yeah, because you if you want to keep Brandon Goodwin around, like you're going to have that option to do so anyway. So I think to me, I would like to bring in a steady hand, but I'm if no one's available on the buyout market, if no one wants to come to Cleveland, like I do think being able to just give that to Brandon Goodwin, like he earned it.
He definitely has earned it. And if no one's coming, then I would hope that they would convert him.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty easy answer. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I can't wait for basketball to be back. I know we got to watch it over the weekend, but it doesn't scratch the same itch as Cleveland Cavaliers basketball,
different.
Carter.
It's different, bro. I can't wait. Yeah. I can't wait for Thursday. It feels weird to have, 2 whole more days of waiting.
But it'll be here soon, and as you said, we have at least 3 pretty easy matchups for the Cavs to kind of get the ball rolling once again after the All-Star break. So massive thanks to all our listeners. Big thanks to everyone that came out once again to say hi to us over the weekend. Yeah. Really, really appreciate it. You guys are absolutely amazing. You make this podcast experience so fulfilling. So again, thank you so much to everyone with the Cavs too. I mean the way that they welcomed us and to see just what a special group of people this team has put together off the court.
They take really good care of us, and
it's really, really heartwarming.
And we're so dumb, guys. They have to take very specific care of us. We just walk around like lost puppies, and they just point us where to go. We really do. But like the good vibes on the court, like and the good people they put together on the court, it's definitely a reflection of the organization as a whole. So massive thanks to them once again for the weekend. Hopefully my voice will be back by the time we are back on Sunday. But thank you so much to our listeners. If you're watching live on YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe, click the notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast, you can leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of the Chase Down's exclusive Discord chat, you can send a screenshot of that review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there, and until next time, go Cavs.